Hey, Lord of the Rings fans, it's your boy, Do Better, here live in full effect, back for another episode of Voices with Arda. Voices of Arda, excuse me. Voices of Arda. It's been a while since I did an episode, guys, so you got to forgive me. You got to forgive me. As always, I'm here with my wonderful co-host, KaliCosplay. What up, Kali?
Hey, everybody. Hope you're having a good week.
I hope everybody is having a wonderful week. It's a wonderful summer. It's been warm. It's been nice outside. Everybody is outside. People are in these streets, as they say. They are in the streets. But we are not in the streets. Right now, we are in our respective homes, and we are ready to do this podcast episode that is near and dear to my heart. So we got a very special guest, someone who is always smiling, bringing much joy, and making wonderful memes, by the way. Wonderful memes and videos. Kali, who do we have as our guest? Introduce them.
We have Haley, the great Haley, with us. Hello.
Haley, what up? What's going on?
Hello.
Haley makes the most wonderful, like she shows her knowledge of the lore by making the most wonderful little skits on TikTok. They're just amazing. I love them.
They're mad funny. I'd dead be cracking up. Like I'd be like, yo, this lady funny, man.
There's so much to do, and there's so much like Tolkien provides us, and then the whole community itself has just been a joy to be a part of. And being someone who just very much looks up to the pod itself and both of you and all of the I would call lore masters, if you will, on the TikTok, lore masters, Lee, everybody over there. And it's just been great to see everyone is so they embody everything that I feel like: fellowship, camaraderie, friendship. It's just great to be a part of, and I just love the Tolkien Talk community and everything that it embodies.
Thank you. We are like just beyond happy to have you a part of the Tolkien Talk community. It's just community now. It's like we've become like our own little family, and you bring much joy to all of us. Like every time I look at one of your memes or one of your videos, I crack up, I smile, and that is very much needed in today's society. So thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. Now, today's episode is something that is just something near and dear to me, like I said, and it's near and dear to all of us, because today we're going to be talking about adoption. The name of today's episode is Children of Adoption. And if you guys aren't aware, I myself am adopted, Kali is adopted, and Haley is adopted. So we share that experience between the three of us. And in Tolkien's works, there are few instances where the characters are adopted or fostered, and we can definitely relate and give great insight on that. I think we can have some real strong conversations while talking about our own personal experiences and relating. So I'm excited to get into this. You know what I'm saying? So let's jump right into it. Let's go. Let's get into it.
Well, as always, although I am very excited as well to get into this topic, I just have a very small little story that I'd like to tell you. Sort of a story.
Before she does that, I just want to just cut her off and just say, I thought this was going to be a serious episode. I was like fully ready for the weight of the world to be on this episode. And here she comes with her bullshit joke. It's going to be like, blah, 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 blah. Hey, why did the can walk out of the bar? Like, get out of here, man. Like, can we just like do the episode? Like, what is going on now? Like, all right.
We can't be too serious without being a little bit funny first. So
let's hit it.
So here's my little story. Is John is going shopping for his upcoming camping trip, and he's bought the tent and he's bought the rain gear and all this stuff, and he's at his last stop, and the salesman comes up and says, which mattress are you trying to decide on? And John looks at the salesman, he says, it's a really big decision. I'm going to have to sleep on it.
But
my silence says it all.
I love it, Kali.
I love it.
I roll with it.
My boyfriend hated it this morning. When I told it to him, he was just like, I hate that joke and I don't like that joke.
I do not eat green eggs and ham.
Perfect.
I do not like them, Sam I am.
I do not like them, Sam I am.
Just moving right along.
All right, we'll move on from the camping joke. All right,
All right.
so
So this is a Lord of the Rings podcast. So first and foremost, when you read the Silmarillion, which is the Bible of the Lord of the Rings, and the history of the entire legendarium, for the most part, history of the elves, history of the dwarves. The dwarves. The dwarves are what Eru Iluvatar calls the children of his adoption, because they were not created like every other race by Eru Iluvatar. So we know that Eru's children are the elves and men. But there is another race out there. They are the stunted people, the dwarves. And I don't call them the stunted people. That's the elves. They're mean. They call them the Naugrim. The Khazad, so we call them the dwarves, are created by Aula. Aula, the smith god, the basically the god of the earth and crafting and making things. And he is the one who really got the bug to like create things from Eru Iluvatar. That is his position. That is his thing. And he could not wait for the children of Eru to awaken. He was a little impatient and he wanted to create something of his own. And he goes and creates the dwarves. And Eru sees this and he's like, "What are you doing? My dude,
hey,
you bugging, you wilding out right now. You doing yo, you know you wasn't
what you
supposed to do
making
that.
over there? What you doing?
What you doing? You wilding. You know you wasn't supposed to make this." But interesting thing, Aule was so humble, and he was humble, and he knew he made a mistake, and he was remorseful to Eru, and Eru allowed him to keep the dwarves alive. He was about to smite them. He was about to kill them. He's like, "Yo, maybe I should destroy the creations of my presumption. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean. I got this from you. The will to create, the desire to create things like this is from you. Like, it's for you." And Eru saw that he didn't mean any malice by it, and he allowed the dwarves to exist. And not only that, he gave them actual life, and he called them the children of his adoption. And now we see the dwarves are very much a part of the histories of Middle Earth, just like the elves, just like men. In fact, the first work that we get from Tolkien is about the dwarves. The Hobbit is about the dwarves and the Hobbit, clearly, but it's literally a dwarven adventure that the Hobbit is a part of. And we're dealing with the dwarves, and we get to see their society. We get to see we get to see their bad sides, their temperament, we get to see their greed, but we also get to see their valor, their bravery. And it says a lot that Eru not only allowed them to exist. He could have just said, "Yeah, okay, this is your problem," but they wouldn't have been a part of the main world as they are fully, and like fully realized a race, if he hadn't adopted them and he said, "Hey, they're gonna be part of my family, just like the elves are." They're not gonna get along with the elves, which how often does that happen in real life, But I think that's a really interesting beginnings that we have of the first adoption in Middle Earth history, or the history of Tolkien's works. And I love the dwarves the most out of all the races, and this is something that I share in common with them. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I would love to get your take on the adoption of the dwarves, both Haley and Kali. So take it away.
Well, first of all, I think I want to mention about Aule and his marital issues, if you will. So being a son of that, I don't know if that was, when I was reading that stood out to me as just looking at the greater family. That would have been interesting, I would have thought, if they had looked more into that. But Aule was a pretty stone cold guy, pretty unforgiving, if you will. You can see where the dwarves did not fall far from the tree. I also think if you look at the greater picture, it did stand out to me, just as someone who is adopted and into a new family, that yes, he accepted them, he called them the children of his adoption, but it did stand out to me that that line of, "and they will always fight with the elves," that they'll just always have discord between the elves, which, why? I mean, I understand why, but also why? You know, if we're thinking about family and parents who would welcome people in, children that they would accept fully, you'd want some sort of cohesiveness between everybody. And so I always, it just stood out to me as someone that, or just as a moment when that was so poignant. He put that in there so intentionally. And then it really plays out through the rest of just Arda in general. Just the whole timeline is very much about that. But I do love the dwarves. I think their skill, there's a lot to be said about how much the dwarves were willing to share. I think they shared a lot of their knowledge. They were good teachers. I thought that was really noble of them, despite many of their setbacks and their stubbornness and and greed. But I always loved their story of they're very broken. I thinking about The Hobbit, and just as I rewatched it recently, and how comedic and Disneyfied, if you will, they almost seemed, rather than these hard-worn people that have just gone through so much from the very beginning of always just starting out. So they're very, very respectful folks.
You made an interesting point about how, yes, Eru said that specifically, that the dwarves would not get along with the elves, so the children of his choice and the children of his adoption. And I don't know about the two of you. So I was adopted as the oldest, and then I had two younger brothers who were biological to my adoptive parents. So like our family was kind of mixed in that way. But once you get used to, I guess, having adoption as part of your life, I don't see myself like differently than my siblings in that way. Like, if Eru had said that all of my children are gonna fight, that would have made a lot of sense. Like, and they do. I mean, elves and men and dwarves, like they're always kind of at each other and stuff. But he singled out the dwarves like that, and I always like that always caught me because it was personal to me, right? And I was like, why would the children of adoption have fought more than the children of your biological ones? But no, I mean, siblings all fight. That's sort of like given whether you're adopted or not.
I personally look at it differently, and this is where I disconnect the adoption part with the act of what Aule did. So Aule's act was an act of, it wasn't rebellion, but he shouldn't have done that. So Eru tells him, hey, I'm not fixing the dwarves because you this was outside of your scope of what you should have done. But I love you. I'm going to allow them to exist. I'm going to accept them into the fold of what I got going on. But you shouldn't have done this. And this is they're going to remain the way that they are. And because the way that they are, they're not going to get along with my children. So by the same proxy, the rings of power don't work on them. So also in that aspect, because Aule made them this way, even the bad shit just doesn't even work on them just because. So it's not even like I don't think he was doing it to be a jerk. Eru, I think he was just like, I accept them, but I'm not, because he wanted them. He's like, oh yeah, amend my work. He's like, you shouldn't have, and this is just a punishment as opposed to him shunning them in a sense of, hey, he's the one. So if you look at any religion, you're not supposed to worship false idols, this, that, and the third. Let's say we look at Christianity, this, that, and the third. So the same thing that Jehovah would do, he did in that sense. Like, and I'm not comparing. I'm just using it, analogy, because it's a way to explain. So yeah, like I look at it like that. So I completely separate that, but I see what you're saying and I understand. And I don't look at Aule in that light. I look at Aule in a very different light. So this is a good conversation. I think it's a very healthy conversation, because things that you're taking away, I'm not looking at in that light. And I hope that you could see the way I'm looking at it and like, and maybe be like, okay, I never thought of it that way. So it's a learning experience, because now I can look like, maybe Aule got some shit with him. You know what I'm saying? But I'm looking at it like, okay, he shouldn't have done this, and Arrow made it very clear, because he's the one above all, and he's like, hey, you can't. He does that with everybody, even when Melkor does what he wants, but he tells Melkor, everything you're doing is is going to come back to me. So you think you're doing something, this and that and the third. And he even explains to I'm forgetting his name right now. But he explains to one of the Valar that, oh, Melkor thinks that he did this, and he thinks that he's hurting the world, and he thinks that he created all these heat, and he created all this cold, but he didn't think about the snowflakes. He didn't think about the rain, how beautiful that is, and that all is tied in with it. And even though he's doing those things, it has nothing to do with what I got it going on, and he can't change that or stop it. It's all through me at the end of the day. And this is the same thing like what he's telling Alla. He's like, yo, I'm gonna leave it how it is, because that wasn't what I envisioned, but I'm going to accept them. So I'm looking at it in a very different light. I'm still going to accept them. And just because of the way they are, like the dwarves are like the opposite of the elves. The elves are like very caring and everything, and Alla is very focused and selfish and just wants to make things beautiful so he can admire them. And it's not jealousy, but it's just like he's just very focused and looking forward. And people look at that as, in a sense, like he's a jerk, when that's just the way he is. He even tells Eru that. He's like, yo, you made me like this. I'm not trying to be a jerk. Now look at him and Melkor. Melkor and him have the same powers. Their powers are the closest related to each other. So when you read your Silmarillion, it explains that. But it says that Aule is not jealous of nobody else making anything. He encourages it. Where Melkor is actually a jerk, and he's like, nah, I gotta have this for me myself, and it's gotta be the best. And oh, you made that better than me. I want that. I gotta take the Silmarils and this and the third. So I think Aule gets a lot of bad slack, and that's what's rubbing off with the dwarf thing, where he wasn't doing it out of a spiteful or hateful thing, and that's why Eru let it slide. But also, it's got to be some laws laid down, and just because he made them that way, he left it that way. He's like, that's why they're not going to get along. They're not going to get along with the elves. You know what I'm saying? So everybody looks at Yavanna. When Yavanna comes in, she's like, why does everybody else get to do shit? She's like, why does Aule get to make the dwarves? Like, my shit is getting destroyed by Melkor. What am I going to do? And she's like, Aule says that the dwarves are going to have dominion over the earth and be able to take things and stuff and chop things down. People are like, oh, that's mean. He says the elves are going to also do the same thing, which is true. He says, and he's just so focused. He's like, I understand what you're saying, but they're going to need wood. And even Manwë says, yeah, this is true. It's not him being a jerk. He's just straightforward. And I look at it that way. Because he's not being a jerk. He's just like oblivious in a sense, which can be jerkish, but I don't think he's purposefully being like hateful or spiteful. So that's my thought process. And I know it's very long-winded, but I feel that way. Me and Wizardway Chris had this conversation, and we look at it very differently. And she has a theory on him, and I understand her thought process and everything. But that's why I'm like, I don't look at it like that at all. So that's my thought process. But sorry for being so long-winded, but I thought I needed to explain that.
No, I really appreciate that, because I think if I kept going down where my I guess my emotional reaction was in reading that to just my own experience, that it would completely just disregard the whole aspect of the dwarves being who they are. Aule gave them everything that they are. The only thing Eru gave them was life and true life, just the soul, breathing in how they become beings, and everything else, their stubbornness, their creativity. You're right. I absolutely agree that Aule, he was so focused on improvement that I think he'd even stated that some of the elves were doing stuff well beyond what he was doing, and he was in there learning with them. And he's so focused on this and he gave that to his children, that they just would never have been the way they are if they had tried to change to become part of Eru's intentional children creation, if you will. And I really like that, and I'm definitely going to see that in that way now, because it just makes sense to how the dwarves are and what role they play, the importance of the overall and I'm sure Arrow knew that, but the importance that their gifts, their qualities that would bring towards the future would be just very important. So yeah.
I appreciate you looking at that, and I just so you know, your opinion and your thought process is 1,000% valid. I'll just give it my thought process, so you know where I'm coming from and why I think the way I think, that I'm not oblivious to other people's thought processes or their like things like, oh, I feel this way, and I'm like, I'm not against it at all. This is why I think the way I think, and I don't, I'm not naive to the fact that, you know, of course, Errol could have done more and been better with the dwarves, and not said that, because it when you're adopted, a lot of people don't know this. Like, you know, you're worried about being treated differently from your siblings that aren't adopted. So I'm the adverse of Callie, the reverse. She's the oldest. I'm the second youngest, and so me, my brother, my sister are the youngest of the siblings that we're adopted with. So we have older siblings that are not adopted, but we're adopted into that family, and so we're the youngest. So it's like they've already been here and da da da. And then we came into the family, as opposed to Callie. If I'm not mistaken, you were adopted first, and then the kids were born, and boom. So
Yeah.
the dynamic, even though we're both adopted, is very different. You know what I'm saying? Because they've been alive and everything, and they were not naturally birthed, and then they saw us get brought into. When Callie was already there, and then they were born, and so they don't, you know what I mean? But
Oh, yeah.
one thing I will say, if I can bring my personal experience into it, is I've never been treated like I was adopted. I've never been treated like that from my family at all, and I'm 1,000% thankful for that. So people looking at that situation with the dwarves, like, hey, why do they have to have strife with the other children? Like I said, I think it's more their actual their making, and Arrow's punishment to them, not punishment put to him, like, hey, I'm not fixing them because, you know, you shouldn't have done that. So how you made them is how they're going to be, and just because they're that way, they're going to have strife, because he knows what's going to happen and going on forward. He knows everything. They're going to have strife with my children, but I think it's very significant that, think of all the things his children does. The dwarves are, if we look at the dwarves, we look at things and we could just easily look at the hobbit and say, oh, they're stubborn and mean, da, 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 sometimes. Everything that happens in the first and second age, the dwarves are the architects, texts, and like the saviors of everything. So the dwarves, the Sindar, got their armor from the dwarves and their weapons from the dwarves. They're never outmatched in the making of steel rings and working with steel. And the entire Sindar army survived because of that. The Lyquindi, the green elves from Osirian, did not have that, and they were defeated. Where Thingol's army survived because of the armor the dwarves made. The dwarves are the ones that literally created most of the trade that came into Beleriand through the dwarf world with Thingol. If it were at the near Neath, the dwarves are the reason the Noldor survived. Any of the Noldor survived because of the dwarves of Belagos, and it specifically says that. So things we look at and we're like, oh, the dwarves, but the dwarves play a super important part, and I think that Eru allowing them to be in the whole fold. He could have been like, yeah, they could be in here, and then they just couldn't have a significant part in the world. They could have just been running around and just, you know, not having parts in great deeds or anything like that. But the dwarves are significant. Smaug is gone because the dwarves went on this great adventure. The whole ring is found because of the adventure the dwarves went on, along with the Hobbit and of course Gandalf and everything like that. But this is the dwarves thing. Khazad Doom, where Mithril comes from, is all mined by the dwarves. The super great deeds and everything, like, still moves through them. And Arrow allowing that to happen, even though that wasn't his original design, is how I look at it. Like, wow. That's not necessarily like, hey, treating them the super best or whatever, but it's like, yo, he didn't have to do that at all. That's how I'm like, yo, he allowed them to really be in the story and the fabric of something he designed just the elves and men as his children. And then, you know, one of his subordinates said, hey, I just made this whole thing up. And he's like, you're welcome into the fold. And great deeds get done because of them. And he encompassed them into the whole life of Arda and stuff like that. So I'm like looking at it like that. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, and not just great deeds, I think great friendships have come out. If you look at some really great friendships over the course of everything, of elves and dwarves, and even to go out into kind of the bigger world, and friendships, the whole fellowship, it almost is about friendship, chosen family. You see so many themes of this philia, this bond of friendship between everybody just grows throughout the whole fellowship, which is so, I mean, thinking about my own experience, and I love that all three of us have three different experiences, because I was adopted as a 17-month-old. I was left in a park as a child, in China, and pretty common from some of the folks that I was adopted with, or gals I was adopted with. But I was not born into a family with children. I'm the oldest of two adopted girls. My sister is not my biological sister. We were born in separate parts of China. And so I was very, like you guys, I was never treated in my family unit like we were adopted. I have some cousins, but on the outside world, very much so. And so that's sort of where I most of my journey with coming to terms with being adopted comes from, was just being in a town where it wasn't common, and so you're very much looked at as the other. Very much never, you always hear you're not Asian enough to hang out with the people of your your ethnicity, and you're certainly not white enough to go hang out with the people of your parents. And so it's been a very interesting combination of me trying to figure out our family dynamic, friendships, and this is, I think, why I just resonate with the Lord of the Rings my whole life. It's just this idea of chosen family, friendships. Not that I think Tolkien ever thinks that family is a bad thing, ever. I think he highlights families like as the ways that give people what makes them so good. Frodo, he's part Took. They always talk about, get the Took side out, and
Yeah.
how strong that is. So it highlights, Aragorn's whole lineage is so important to him, and all of that. So it's not that family is bad, but it's the bonds of friendship that have come together for chosen and similar deeds. The saving Middle Earth, for lack of better words, is just the
Yeah.
big goal. Not to bring up Narnia too much, but if you look at the difference between the family of the children and their journey versus the fellowship, and the outcomes of the two, where they go on being rulers of this place, lions, kings, it kind of going, versus the fellowship where everyone goes back and just becomes the better people of who they originally came from. It's very interesting.
That's
That's
first of
pretty
all,
cool. You can reference
your
Narnia
your story
anytime.
is your story is awesome. It wasn't awesome that you were left on the park,
No,
but
no. It's awesome that it
it's
worked
awesome
out though.
that it worked out and you got adopted. So now it's so it's so cool. I think that the dynamics and differences, but the similarities of our adoption. So whereas I believe Callie and you were adopted into families where your adopting family is a different race from you guys, I was adopted into a Black family. And if nobody said anything, nobody would know. We very much look alike, and and like so no one ever was like, hey, are you adopted? They would never know unless you just were around then to know. So you were adopted in 17 months. I was adopted when I was about 2. Um, very tragic circumstances of my adoption. Sucked, but luckily being in foster care with the same family that adopted me, that worked out really well. And I also got able to find, able to be with my brother and sister, which wouldn't have happened. So quick little story of how that happened. So we could talk about each other's situations. Was born in Brooklyn. A family out there is from the projects, and if Tompkins projects and Bed-Stuy, right across the street from Marcy projects, like where Jay-Z is from. So what I'm saying, like, it's the hood. My mother unfortunately had leukemia and passed away. And this is why, we were taken and, not given away, because we very much have family out there. But when you live in the projects, so the state takes you in and they're like, okay, who can we give you to? I have many aunts, grandmother, grandfather, God bless, passed now, but I have many aunts and uncles. Could have went with them. Can't go with them. The state can't put you in an uncomfortable situation. So this is as far as New York goes. I don't know where you guys live at. So in the projects, my aunts all got like 10 kids. So they can't put us in the house with the kids there because it's like too many. So they're like, oh, we got to put you where it's a comfortable situation. You know what I'm saying? You already got, if you got 5 kids, that doesn't work. And, like a project is small apartments. So we were given to cousins. And they took us in, and we would have been still with our same family and everything. But this is what I found out later that 2 people in the home had tuberculosis. This is endangering the welfare of the child, because me, my brother, and my sister both all were exposed. The state came and took us, and they just took us and put us in the system. Now we're separated from our family. Our family couldn't even really, find us like all like that. Like, and our fathers like nowhere to be found, whatever the case may have you, or didn't accept, whatever that is. But so we were taken, and then we kind of end up getting lost like that. And we were in the system, and me and my sister were like in the same home. And my brother was like put in Yonkers somewhere, something like that. And so my adopted family, they were looking for children to take care of, adopt, foster care. And they only went to get, if I'm not mistaken, my sister or my brother, one of them. It wasn't me. And they went to get them, and they only went to get one child. And my mother, went to get, I think, my sister. And my sister was like, my sister's older. She was like, oh, what about my brothers? And they were like, oh, no, we can't take one and not take the others. And they found me and my brother, and they put us all together, and all 3 of us put us in foster care and adopted all 3 of us when they only went for one. So I will never ever forget that. Be forever indebted to them. And yeah, it's crazy. It's all this other crazy stuff, because recently I've been able to find my birth family and reconnect with them on both sides. And I have a million brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and everything, and got the full stories of everything, and tragedies of this, that, and being lost, and efforts to find each other. And it's a long tale, but that's my situation, my story. And my family that adopted me is my family. I have that my last name, it was on my arm, and it's like I never was adopted anything. Like, you might as well just forget about that's my family. And my birth family knows, and it's a respect and understanding, and nobody harbors any ill feelings. I was so scared for 90% of my life to even tell my adopted family that I wanted to seek out and find my birth family, because I thought they would feel away. I was terrified. And one day, I don't know why, but I was talking to my aunt and my sister, and I was like, and I was just terrified. I was like, because it bothers you, because I didn't know the circumstances until later in my life. And I was like, I just need to know, like, and they were like, yeah, we were waiting for you to ask, man. Oh yeah, we'll help you any way we can. And I was like, what? I've been scared all this time for it. And I was terrified. I thought they think I was being ungrateful and all of this stuff. And it ended up, they were like, yeah, this is what we know. And unfortunately, I had to close it up, so it was very difficult to find anything. It sucked. It sucked for like a couple years, but luckily some things happened. So that's my story. Callie, I never fully got your story. I would love to know the circumstances of your adoption.
It's a lot simpler, a lot more simple than yours, I think. It's a pretty straightforward story. I was born in Bangkok, Thailand. I was abandoned. And was in orphanages, I guess. And my parents couldn't have their own children, and they wanted a family really badly. And so they visited Thailand, and they decided they liked it and liked the people, so they thought they might keep one. So
with me.
Yeah, they're like, oh, we're keeping this one. So, yeah, so they filed the papers, and funny, the day that they left Thailand after doing that, my mom remembers looking out the window and thinking, oh, I wonder if there's like a little baby, down there waiting for us. And I was being born then, like that day.
Oh
So
wow.
like, really crazy. But I was adopted, I think a little bit like you, Haley, to a very small, like rural farming town in Quebec, and there just aren't people of color. When I went to elementary school, I one of my first memories of being on the playground and stuff was this kid walks up to me and he goes, I didn't know they made people in your color. And I was just like, what? Like, and so it's true. Like a lot of the times out there, when people see me, they're seeing a person of color for the very first time in their entire lives. And that's a pretty big burden to shoulder. Like, yeah, it's a big burden, I would say, for a young child who is like trying to figure out their own stuff, but also trying to help teach all these people that there are other people out there than what's in their small little country town. So that was interesting and very formative. But I don't know, Haley, if you kind of felt the same when you were.
It's so interesting. I share a lot of similarities because I think I did grow up, I did grow up in actually a very suburban neighborhood, and it wasn't so much that there weren't people who looked like me, because there are a lot of Asian people where I am. But what I found was I feel like there weren't a lot of adopted. Family was a big thing in my town. There are a lot of people, because I live on an island in Seattle.
Oh.
And so it's very not well known. And so people, they just live on the island the whole time. My dad lived here.
Mhm.
He went to school there. It's very generationally charged. A lot of people have just families who have been here so long. So I grew up in a place where it's like they were not used to somebody not being able to have a child that didn't look like them, because they're like, there's my grandmother, my great grandmother, my great great grandmother. And it was so much of, you're different because, hey, I knew your dad, but you don't look like your dad. Or I had your dad in high school and you don't look anything like that. Are you sure you're his daughter?
Are you sure? Yeah, I like
And
that.
it's just, it was a whole, everybody I grew up with was always talking about, oh, you look so much like this person, or I remember when you look like your, because all the students in my class, their parents also were in Mercer Island, so they were always, oh, I remember your dad, you look so much like them growing up. And there was just never, you never had that. And it was,
Yeah.
I if I could think about my adoption, it's not that because I was so young that I don't remember my parents. I feel like I've always lived almost on the edge of the knife of being really happy that I was given the opportunity and that my family was able to, like, looking at my adoption as thank goodness my mother gave me up, so I could have the opportunity to be where I am today. And like being happy about that, but also being really hurt that you left me, like you left me in a park. Why? Like, why did you even have me? So and it carries through as a child of, why didn't anybody at my school accept me? Why was I out ostracized? Why did, nobody understand that what I was going through? But also I was happy to have friends. I was happy to be playing soccer, in band, doing that stuff. So it was great experience. But I do feel like I was always balancing on a knife between, do I really, am I happy about this, or am I angry? And it's a weird sort of way. I talk to people who also have been adopted like me, and they're like, there's a lot of times where we were very angry, we're very upset. We don't have the answers that some people are very blessed to have of meeting their biological parents. And so because it's not ever something I think I've ever been decided on. Sorry. But
It's okay.
but I don't know if I would want to go find out who they are yet, because I'm still not decided on that, if I'm happy or if I'm upset or angry still. And I don't know if it's because I don't want to know, because what if it was just, we had a boy and you were not a boy, and
Mm.
and I don't know if I could handle being that hurt by my mother. So I don't know. I feel like, this going back to almost Tolkien, I feel like it's always all the characters ride that line of good and bad. And at some points you're faced with, you could do something really helpful or really upset. And it's always like I always felt like I could act on being really angry, or I could go through the world and help people who have been left out, or shoot.
No, that's
Yeah,
No.
that's beautiful. And I think
yeah,
I
that's
would say to that it's possible to be both. And you may just be both forever, and that's okay too. Like, we don't have to have just one feeling about something, right? We can have very complicated and very conflicting feelings about the same thing, and that's okay.
absolutely. If I could just tell you, like, from my experience, and as somebody who's, recently found their birth family in a very difficult decision and thought process, and understand where you're coming from. So like I said, I adopted with my younger brother and my older sister. My younger brother does not give a fuck. He does not care. He cares that we found our family. Let's clarify that. He's absolutely like, cool, all right, but he doesn't. He wasn't like, hey, let's go look for. He didn't that. He's content. He's living his life. He's happy we found him, but he doesn't like. Now
Need to
my
connect
sister,
with them.
it's just not. He doesn't. My sister is like 10 times more than me. Like, she needed it. She was older. She remembers certain things, and she's just like, what's going on? Why this, and the third? And I was like kind of like in the middle. I was always bothered by it. So my point in saying that is everybody is different. So your thought process is very much your own, and it's 100% valid. And situations are different, so don't worry about what nobody else. Your feelings are valid. Don't worry about if you feel that way. It's for a reason, and it's okay. But I do want to give you some hope and caution at the same time. You never know the full story of something. So we were adopted. I didn't know why all my life. I knew my mother died. And I knew that's why we were adopted. Like I said, closed adoption. If I don't know about other states, but in New York, you can't find out shit but health. Only that, nothing. Literally, they won't tell you anything. It's at the time. Now it's different, and it sucks. So when you go looking, they're like, yeah, we know all your shit. You can't tell you none of it, and it's like, what? And I'm like, yo, I have to have aunts or uncles or grand. Like, nobody didn't want to keep me. So the abandonment issues are crazy. And it's like, what happened? Why nobody didn't want? Not that it had nothing to do with my regular family, my family that adopted me. It had nothing to do with them. This is shit that you think about every day. That you're like, in Black culture, your cousins are everything. Like, your cousins, so everybody's like, I got cousins and stuff like that. But I'm trying to connect the dots. I can connect it with my adopted family, like, oh yeah, I know we're cousins by this way. But I'm like, yo, who do I look like? Who do I, even though we favor each other because we're just, we're African American to a certain extent, what I'm saying? Like I said, but I want to know, hey man, who do I look like? Where do I get my intelligence from? Where do I get why am I so short? I'm the shortest person in my whole family. Like, why, and I'm like, what's going on, and why is this, why this? And it bothers you, and it bothers you, and bothers you. So I, I found out certain things, and I'm explaining this to you, Haley, because certain things I was opened up to that were completely like, I did not know that. That is crazy. I did not realize that happened, and these people were looking for me. I thought nobody cared. So it was a relief. But then also, to be 100% honest, that's my mother's side. On my father's side, and I don't share this information lightly, but this is what happened. And and it sucks. So my father had me with my mother, but he also ended up marrying my aunt, and they didn't know. She didn't know. My aunt didn't know he had a baby with her sister. So I'm adopted for no freaking reason. Be honest, because my dad knew that I was his baby, and he just didn't say anything. He was married to my aunt. We were adopted and gone. He didn't say anything. You know what I'm saying? So he's living with my aunt and my whole family, and he's married. He's married to her, and never said that's my child. So I got adopted and moved and everything and all of this stuff, and he's sitting there and he's living with my family and everything, and never said anything. It ended up being a really crazy way, and he was unfortunately he was like a womanizer person where he had a lot of children, and he was doing that type of stuff. What is just neither here nor there. I'm not even mad about that. It is what it is. This happened in the freaking 80s and whatever. I'm too old I have a whole life and kids, and I'm not worried about it. And I never met him, and he passed now, so I don't. It's not like I'm like I need to be mad at him, but it hurts to find that out that wow, you could have what? So that
Somebody
sucks.
could have stepped up
So
and they just didn't.
yeah, so there's parts where it's like I completely needed to get this feeling of abandonment issue that's gone in a certain sense, because I'm like, yo, people was looking for me. And then it also, not everything is peaches and cream. To find that, I was like, you a really sucky human being. That sucks. That's terrible. But I do have a sense of closure, because it would have bothered me so much to never find anything out. And though that sucks, one good thing out of it is I have brothers and sisters, and for the most part, most of them are like so like understanding of we didn't do anything. We didn't make this happen. We didn't know about each other. And now we're connecting and we talk every day, and not even every day. Everybody's not the same. So some of my brothers I talk to every day, some of my sisters I talk to, some they're like, oh, I told you when I told you, because we didn't grow up together. But it's like, it's a thing. You know what I'm saying? Your situation is far different from mine. But the reason I said that to you is because I think it probably, I don't know. I think it's worth to give it a thing. If you have the strength of will and character, which I think you do, to understand, hey, I already been through this. You already been through the hardest part of, you know what I mean? Like you already were left and everything like that. And I don't mean that in a harsh way. I mean that's the reality of what happened. And look at you. You're doing amazing. You're funny as hell. You understand the gravity of the situation. You got people, a great family. I'm assuming they're great, great family, and you live in a nice place, and all this. You're fine. You're good. It might hurt to find certain things out, but it also will calm certain things, and you might just need it to, you know what I mean? Like, but then again, not everybody's the same. Like I said, my brother doesn't care. He's just like, yeah, thanks, cool, nice meeting you guys. All right, I'm gonna continue to live my life. We'll talk when we talk. He doesn't, and he loves them, and he's happy to find them, but he just is like, cool. Where I'm like, okay, let me call my aunt and talk to them and converse, and now like me and my cousins are real close and everything like that, and that's what I want and need for me and everything like that. That's me. My brother is like, cool, great. We're all of that whenever we bump into each other or whatever, but he doesn't care. He doesn't like that. It's hard to say. My sister is like, super into it and talks to everybody and everything like that. So we're all different in a certain aspect. And I hope you can find, I think you should find your peace in that situation. Figure out what you want to do, and I think you should, because you know what I'm saying. Who knows what your mother was going through? Who knows if that's even the case? Because I was thinking one thing for years, and that wasn't the case. And if it is the case, you already thought that was the case. I feel like you thought that was the case already. Damn, that sucks. But you know what? Look at me. Look at the. Do you know why people in rap always are like talking about the neighborhoods they come from? They're always like, yeah, Watts or Brooklyn or whatever. Do you know why that is? Do you know what it takes to survive that? You come from the slum. Do you know what you got to go through? Like, that's what, like, so it's like, why are you proud of that? Because regular people, that's not regular. You know what I survived? So there's like a badge. I've been through that. Like, that's why they you know what I mean, champion it, because they're like, yo, I'm from here. Like, this is a harsh environment. I'm survived it. I thrive it. You've been through a super traumatic experience, where a lot of people couldn't take it, or it, you know, will break them down. And look how funny and vibrant and bright you are. That is amazing. Champion that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Everybody could take being a doctor. Some people could go into depression. A lot of people can't take that and handle that. You know what I'm saying? They can't deal with that hurt. They don't know what the abandonment issue. They don't know what it feel like to wonder what your peoples look like. What happened? Why did I get left? Why does nobody else want me? That they don't. A lot of people can't handle that. Some people can't handle being called regular names. You know what I'm saying? Like, so just imagine that. So I hope you can take that. You know what I'm saying? Of course, I've done talk 50,000 years, but
Well, no, thank you for sharing that. I definitely think the greatest gifts of nuggets of wisdom I feel like I've ever gathered from folks that I've talked to is just that same vein of the strength that it gave you to go through that, even though, like you said, the hardest part was over, but being able to gather and gain that closure, is just, even no matter how it comes out, is very key in one's journey through this whole life experience, because it isn't normal. And I think that's back to kind of, when I was talking about my hometown, I think I grew up with a very adverse reaction to, I guess there was a lot of blood is thicker than water, energy. Yeah. And I always saw that from other people, but it always meant that, push come to shove, I was always going to be left out because everybody else had siblings, everybody else had this. And me and my sister are close, but we've never had a great, close sibling relationship. I just think it just never grew as we grew apart as we got older, which is, we're still family. Yeah. But you see that. And I think that it made me scared of what, that type of look for, because I love the people that chose me. I'm kind of in the same vein as your brother. It sounds like I would right now. I'm very much, this is my family. I don't really care what happens, and I'm going to move forward. Part of me is always hopeful that it's, why can't the rest of everybody else do that for me instead of asking me?
And that's fine. That's completely fine. You know what I'm saying? So, like, even though I'm encouraging you, hey, I think you should do this. That's me, because I'm an optimist and I always want people to be able to find whatever. Yeah. But if you're content, like, I had to learn to be like, I look at my brother sometimes, I'm like, yo, why ain't you, like, you know what I mean? And I used to be upset by it, but then he's fine. That's what he's fine where he is. It's okay. So if that's where you are, enough said, live your life and be happy and be content. And I'm glad we were able to have this conversation and just live your life, because you already know what you needed, or what you got from it, or what you didn't get from it, or you already been through the experience. You don't want to even deal with it no more. That's fine. Whatever the case may have you. You know what I'm saying? From my end, I always want to encourage, because I'm like, wow. Like, I used to hate the movie Antoine Fisher, because I was like, bullshit. Yep. That'll never happen. I used to hate it. I used to like, there's no such thing. And then come to find out, that's very much how when we found our family, like, they were like, had a big party for us and everything. I was like, what? This shit can happen. But that's not everybody's situation. So the reality of that needs to be set in your freaking head. I have brothers and sisters. If you bump into 10 people, 2 of them are assholes. It doesn't matter if they're your family or not. So to go in there like, oh, everyone, some of my brothers and sisters probably are assholes. I don't know all of them, but they probably, so if I meet them, I know if they're jerk, that's on them. That's on them. Don't take it personal. It still might hurt you or whatever, but understand they are their own person. That doesn't mean anything. Whatever they don't want to do, or they don't feel comfortable, or whatever, don't ever let that reflect on you. Be you, be your strong self, and understand situations and how people are in general, and you will be fine. You will
I
be
just need
fine.
you like telling me this every day. Then we'll start the healing journey. But no,
So
I'll record an audio clip for you, and you can replay this part of the podcast
yeah,
in your ear, just over and over. Mantras before bed.
I applaud your strength, both you and Callie. Like I said, I grew up in an African American family and the African American community, so my comfort level was far greater, I feel like, than yours, and I applaud you. I never was asked. Only time people would ask if I was adopted is when I say how old my mother is. They'd be like, "Your mother had you when she was 50? What?" Like, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, "No, I was adopted." And they're like, "Oh." But a lot of people in my neighborhood were actually fostered or adopted. So many of my friends, we have similar experiences, or we just have a certain camaraderie because a lot of us came from different places. And we're in the difference in my place is the place where I'm from, the African American community is an anomaly as opposed to the people. Like the community is an anomaly to where we live at in Long Island, where it's like we're surrounded by like a white, community, whatever. But we have a Black African American community that's redlined in a place you wouldn't think it is. So like we like came from the hood in this area that people would never be like, what? So that's the where we differ and have a struggle as opposed to like I said, I didn't grow up with white people. Like I grew up with Black people, and so you growing up with I'm assuming people, it doesn't matter, but white people, and you know what I'm saying. So it's like I could just imagine the being asked all the time like, hey, what's going on, So I applaud you, and you know what I'm saying. I applaud them, because when somebody shows you that's my daughter, I don't give a fuck what you're talking about. That is like an awesome feeling. That's my daughter. Whatever I adopted her, that's my daughter. And you know what I'm saying? Like, because that it weighs on them too. We never think about that. Like, you know what I'm saying? And they just show you, I love them so much. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't speak to your experience, but if that was the case, that's awesome. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I appreciate that from my family. They ain't never bring it up. They ain't never, we knew because we knew, but they never brought it up. They just treated us regular.
it really just goes to show how you have, and not can, but you really have to consciously, no matter if you're biologically family, if you're chosen family, if you're friends, you just have to choose to keep those people in your life and as the people that you love in your life. It's not just a take it for granted sort of thing. I think you will always see the best relationships, the best families are people who constantly choose to honor that above anything else, above selfish reasons, above outside reasons. They'll stick with their family friend unit, their chosen peoples. And that, like you said, that is beautiful. I love seeing that.
Instance, if we could segue where this can go wrong, and I want to point this out, is to bring it back into the Lord of the Rings realm or vein. Turin Turambar. I don't say that name lightly because I am not a Turin fan.
He just immediately elicits giggles from Haley.
Not a fan of Turin. But Turin was fostered in good faith. And this is a situation that actually happens a lot in the real world as well. We may have difference of opinions, just like a divorce thing, but this is my viewpoint. Turin was fostered in Doriath by Thingol and Melian, who treated him very well. Now, if this had happened before, they were completely against man being allowed. But life lessons taught them, hey, we were wrong. And they very much were like, yo, these people are awesome. Hey, you're welcome in our home. And they treated him exceedingly good. In fact, other elves were jealous. Cirrus was jealous of the relationship between Thingol and Turin. So Turin, of his own issues and problems, from doing something, completely were like, nope, I'm out of here. I'm and they kind of rejected their love and them looking for them. And people loved him so much, they put their life on the line. Bellic Strongbow put everything aside. He was one of the March Wardens of Doriath, of Thingol. So he had a very important job. And he put that to the side and said, I'm going to go find your son. I love him. And Thingol said, we love him. Melian said, we love him. Please, you can have anything in our whole kingdom if you go. Pick from whatever we got. He picks the sword and, goes and looks for his Thingol's adopted son. And so you see the love on their side, but then you see it being taken for granted. And it may not all be his fault. He's cursed, or he self-fulfilling prophecy cursed himself, but he just completely neglected and just was like, no, they're not, they must not be serious or anything. And then anger comes into the situation, and he's just like, he neglects it. He's just like, whatever. And this plays a whole part. And I think it's really interesting because Thorin chooses his own path. His family that fostered him never gave up hope. They always stayed looking for him. His real father comes into the picture. He doesn't see how Thorin was actually treated, just how he heard that Thorin was treated because of the curse of Morgoth. And he comes and he berates Thingol and Melian, and he talks down on them. And not by any fault of his own, but this is what his perception was. So when you don't have a full story of something, things can go awry really, really badly. And this is exactly what happens. So he feels, look what happened to my son and my daughter and my wife. Look how they were mistreated. They weren't fostered properly. Here, and he, with mockery, throws the Nauglamir at them, and he's nasty, and because he has a visceral reaction. He just knows what he knows. Glaurung and Morgoth clouded everything up. He finally opens his eyes when Melian is like, clears his mind. It's like, this is how they were actually treated. We love them. We harbored them in good faith. We stayed looking for him. And then he sees it, and he's like, oh shit. Like, wow. And it's like eye-opening. But the damage was done. The Nauglamir, it goes into Thingol's possession, which leads to the Nauglamir and the Silmaril being put together. And then the downfall of Doriath when the adores. You see how everything has an effect. And it's an effect of the curse, but also his thought process of, yo, you didn't take care of my son. So like misinformation is something we have to fight against. I always say, especially in the situation where we're adopted or fostered, everybody needs to have as much information and understanding as possible of fully things. Now, there are situations which this sucks, but foster parents are abusive and they're terrible people. There need to be full disclosure. Counseling needs to happen to the people that went through it, and they need to disclose this information to the state or their family, so they know, hey, I can't be put back into the system. I need some help with something, because now they're going to have that. I know people who have been through that and they're scarred for life, and they're like, I don't want to go back into foster care. I don't want to, be a part of, even though somebody might have good intentions and well-meaning, they're scarred from their previous home, and they don't want to be involved in that. Thank God that wasn't the case for me. I'm assuming that wasn't the case for either one of you. So, but a couple of my friends, they absolutely had terrible experiences. So they were very apprehensive going into a new home. Thorin lived good, but it was misunderstood that Thorin thought that he was just like abandoned and it was like nobody cared. And now his wrath came down because he was in a situation where he had no choice. He was in prison. So, his son being taken and whatever, that wasn't in any control of his. So it just spiraled out of control, and a lot of anger and hatred and everything like that. So understanding is key on both sides. Even though the situation with my dad sucked, I try to find out from everybody why did this stuff happen. And then when I found out, oh, he's just a jerk. He's just a jerk. If remember he saw us how possibly could get information from, he just sucked in that certain sense. I don't hate him, nothing like that, but it has nothing to do with me because I'm not a jerk. You know what I'm saying? And then on my other side, hey, why didn't my aunts try to find this? Oh, they did. I thought this all these years. They were looking for me. Other people confirmed this that had nothing to do with it. No reason oh, wow. I feel much better. Now my soul is calm. Information is key. So that's why I bring up the Turin to Rumbar information, because that just went awry because there was things cloudy and people blocking it and stubbornness and all that type of stuff. So yeah, just another instance in the Lord of the Rings where we have a fostering situation. Because I was put in foster care first, and was in foster care for about 3 years before I actually was adopted, and I was adopted by the same family, which is awesome. So they've always been with the same people. And how about you guys? How were you fostered for a while, or were you just adopted straight away?
I was just adopted very young. I think I had I was, so in Thailand, they have you in the orphanage, and then before, at least this is what I understand, before you're about to be adopted to a family, they send you from like the big orphanage to like a foster home so that you can kind of learn to live outside the orphanage and learn to like live as a family. So, I mean, I kind of had that, but nothing in my memory, nobody that I consciously have been attached to or anything like that.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah, I think I just was way too young. At 17 months, I don't have any recollections of any sort of part of my adoption. And I think it's been interesting to be in that position where I just have no experience. I think that from what I've learned about just childhood development and just the initial abandonment on a baby and how that affects their mental health going forward, but having no idea of how that system works. That was just something my parents did. And I didn't see any of or experience any of the behind the scenes of that. And so I only see the system as something from a very outside point of view as well. And so it's been interesting to go in and see more of what it really is like, because I am a little bit of a not criminal minds. What is it? Criminal news junkie too. And just there's a lot of instances where you do see the systems failing children.
Yeah.
Just more than heartbreaking. And
Yeah.
I have no words for that, but it is, my own experience was just mostly just living with the repercussions of everything.
Yeah. I was too young too, so I didn't. It was going on, and I in hindsight, I was like, oh, that's what was happening. Like I remember a social worker would come in the house, but when I was little, I didn't know that was a social worker. I was just like, this guy comes and brings us toys and like watches us like with our family, and I was like, okay, I didn't know what was going on. And then I remember the day we went and got actually adopted, and we signed our social security card. He was like, do you want to change your last name? And I was like, what are you talking about?
Oh
What's
man,
happening? I
that's
didn't
a big
know.
question for a child. Oh my
But we were like,
goodness.
yeah, of course. They're like, yeah. Do you want to be a Jenkins? And we're like, yeah. And because we had different last names at first, but we were like, we didn't really know. Like when you're 3, 4, 5, you don't know. So I remember it, and I'm like, yeah, of course, because this is my family. And then, but you know, but you don't really fully get the gravity of it. And so looking back, I remember those things, and I'm like, now, like, oh yeah, okay, I remember that happened. I remember this, and I remember the process and everything. But it wasn't like if I was 10 or 15 or something, like some people go through that, which is much harder because you're acclimated to a certain system or people or whatever. So no, I've always been with the same family since memory. I don't remember anything before that. I was 2 years old when I was put into foster care and adopted when I was about 5 with the same family. So I don't remember nothing prior to that. I've just always been with the same family, and that's been it. And that's my mother, my father, my brothers and sisters. And this adoption thing is literally, to me, is just a technical word because that's what we have to call it because that's the reality of it. But as far as I'm concerned, and all of us are concerned, those are my brothers and sisters and mother, father, and we don't. And if I wasn't having a podcast talking about it, I wouldn't call them adopted anything, unless it was brought up, because that's not what it is, and that's not what it is to me. And my family treats me so well, and my cousins, everything, like, and so my whole community really embraced me and stuff like that, and everything. And then when I want to talk about it, cool, we're open to talk about it. We're not want to talk about it, never has to get brought up. So lucked out in that scenario there, and the tough conversations with the birth families about certain things because certain things suck. But I'm grown. I'm 40 years old. I have kids, live my life as far as like with that type of stuff, grew up and everything. So anything else is just kind of like more like information. It's like, damn, wish that didn't happen, but it already did. So I kind of like don't take it with a grain of salt, but I take it less like an impact is not like super crazy as if I was younger, it would have hurt me a lot more. But the fact that I'm of the age and I've already like lived my life and got to a place where I had a father. I didn't so even though you sucked, my friend, you know what I'm saying? No offense to him, because like I said, I'm not trying to berate him, but I had a great regular father, you know what I mean? So I lucked out there. So this is cool. And now on the adverse of that, in the Lord of the Rings, we have the fostering of Aragorn, which is very different from fostering the Torah Jerumbar, not in the sense of someone being good to him, but him being thankful and that it working out as well. So Aragorn was fostered in Rivendell along with all of his sires because of the downfall of Arnor and the relationship between Elrond and Aragorn's descendants, because all of Aragorn's descendants are descended from Elrond's brother Elros, who was the first king of Numenor. And so if you aren't aware of that, yeah. oh, they're adopted. Yo, see, I told you they would naturally. So in the beginning of this podcast, I was like, hey, these conversations will naturally segue into, I forgot about that. They were also adopted.
Both of them, yeah.
Look, Haley, put me on. Tell me all about it, because you know what? Let me just sit back and shut up. Haley, tell us about Elrond and Elros and how they were adopted. And they were adopted in super fucked up situation. And I said fucked up because it's fucked up. I can't water it down. It's fucked up how they were adopted. But love grew there. So I'm gonna let Haley explain it to you because I talked too much. Go ahead.
Oh boy. Well, I mean, oh no, and of course now my Sunday brain is like, what? But I mean, it is definitely after talking about Tyrion going to Elrond and Elros, and I get nervous. I'm like, you guys can definitely explain how they were found, and because I'm pretty sure they were found by and name pronunciation, was it Madras? Madras?
If you say Mithros or Mathros, it's fine, because in American we would say Mathros. It's Mithros, but like that's English, like England English. But in America we would be like Mathros. I used to say Mathros, and I still say Mathros. But if you want to pronounce it Mithros, it's fine. Don't let nobody try to bully you about pronunciations unless it's something like really blatantly like you should be pronouncing it this way. But either one, we know who you're talking about. And Maglor, Mithros and Maglor are the ones who caused for them to need to be adopted, and Maglor adopted them.
And
yes.
Yes. And I mean, shoot, I don't I was, oh my gosh, they're
no pressure.
Yeah, no, none at all. As I am forgetting everything I know about Tolkien is shoot, where were we? Well, they were found by those guys. What were they, found by a river or something close to that?
Yeah, so it's during the second kinslaying. Was it second or third? Third kinslaying, excuse me. During the third kinslaying, apologize. The third kinslaying. So the refugees of both Doriath and of Gondolin, formed a community down by the river Syrian, and like and they formed a community. This is the last remnants of the elves of Beleriand are at the havens of Syrian, and so Eärendil and his wife Elwing, Eärendil being from Gondolin and Elwing being from Doriath, they fell in love and they had two children. They had Elrond and Elros, they're twins. And the seven sons of Fëanor, which now were only 4 sons of Fëanor, because Celeborn, Corfin, and Caranthir were killed in the previous kinslaying. They come down on the havens, and they're coming after the Silmaril because Elwing had the Silmaril, and she gave it to she had the Silmaril, and Eärendil was gone at the time. He was off on a sailing adventure, and they came to get the Silmaril back from Elwing, and they attacked the havens and they slaughtered everyone. And this is out of all three of the kinslayings, this is the worst. And the children, got left, and Maglor and Mathros, even though they did this terrible deed, it's because of the actions of the Silmarils and their oath. They felt terrible. They felt terrible. Even the kinslaying before, they felt terrible because Elwing's brothers, actually, also twins, two brothers, were actually lost in the woods and they never were found. And Mathros looked for them for a while and he couldn't find them, and they're dead or believed to be dead. So that sucked. But same thing happens here, but they actually find Elrond and Elros, and Maglor, the second eldest of the brothers, takes them and forces them, and great love happens between them. So they were actually raised by their enemies, and they're not only their enemies, but they're related as well. They're distant cousins, and they're literally, they love each other, and it's a fucked up situation. You killed all my peoples. Elwing escapes, so the mother survives, and she brings the Silmaril, and she lands on the ship, and Olmo changes her into a bird, a swan, is it? A bird, a seabird. I can't remember exactly what it is. And she goes in, and Arundel and Elwing survive, but all the rest of the havens are destroyed, and Gil-galad arrived too late, and he wasn't able to save them. So they grow up, and Maglor and Mathros raised them, specifically Maglor, who is, I think, him and Mathros are the most compelling of the brothers, because they lead the deeds, but their hearts are conflicted. They're kind of good, but they're just doing because the oath is driving them. And I'm not making excuses for them. But you can tell by their actions in there. And Maglor specifically is really a nice person. He just is just driven by this oath. And he tries to stop himself, but he does the right thing, and he raises them right. And he gives them good lore, and he raises them right. And you see who they become. And then not only that, but we have another case of fostering after they are killed or defeated or whatever the case may have you. Elrond and Elros are also fostered by Círdan the Shipwright, just like Gil-galad is fostered by Círdan the Shipwright. So Gil-galad obviously was sent to the Havens to survive, because the Dagor Bragollach happens, and the Noldor are attacked, and Iranian Gil-galad is the son of Fingon. In the story, I don't want to care about retcons. I don't care about retcons. This is what happens in the Silmarillion, and he's sent to the Havens, and he's fostered by Círdan the Shipwright, and he ends up becoming the High King of the Noldor. But the knowledge that is bestowed upon him and the histories, same thing as Elrond and Elros, because Gil-galad and Círdan kind of raised them after Maglor's, ceases to exist, or not ceases to exist, but disappears. And it's just a commonality through the legendarium of being fostered, and they are fostered right, even by the enemies. Elrond is a lore master and a good guy. Elros becomes the first king of Numenor, and he's revered. And Elrond sees I think Maglor taught him hey, these events are happening, make your own way. Because the reason I say that is Maglor he couldn't make his own way. Whatever the oath said to do, he did, and he regretted it, because he didn't even want to try to get the Silmarils at the end, but his brother convinced him this is what we got to do. He wanted to kind of leave it alone, and he ended up regretting it. So I think he taught Elrond, make your own way. The reason I say that is Elrond's decision to not become the High King of the Noldor, I think, was a complete remnant of what Maglor taught him. Elrond, if you didn't know, is next in line after Gil-galad to be the High King of the Noldor. And he decides, I just want to be a Lord Master. I just want to be a Lord. I don't want to be the High King of the Noldor. And he doesn't accept the position. He doesn't take it. He just lives. And he just is what he is. And he's looked to as a more of a Lord Master and a keeper of things. Elros becomes the king of Numenor because he becomes a man. And he's descended from all three houses of the Dain, and it makes sense because he's a man. So it makes sense for him to do that. Elrond remains an elf, so he technically should have been the king of the Sindar elves and the king of the Noldor elves, not only both, and he doesn't. He doesn't. After Gilgalad is slain by Sauron, he doesn't accept it. And he just does what he wants to do. And he wants to be a preserver and a keeper of the lore and a master and to help people. And I think Maglor instilled that in him, like, yo, look what happened to us. Like, we just do your own thing. And Círdan's tutelage as well, because Círdan has seen everything. Círdan is oldest living elf in Middle Earth, and he's seen everything, and he knows how things can go bad. And I think both of them were like, yo, just do your own thing. So fostering can come from something bad and turn into something good. And I think Elrond is like a perfect example. And thank you so much, Haley, for reminding me, because I completely forgot about that. That
Thank
is
you for
awesome.
telling us.
That
My
was
version would
freaking
have
awesome.
just been adopted, gone there, happily ever after. That's what I take away. Elrond is awesome. No.
Yo, nah, man, it's just deep, man. It's deep. It's deep.
No, that's a good foster story.
So we talked about that, and then Aragorn's adoption or fostering, very similar. He felt compelled. Elrond felt compelled because of his brothers, his line. Hey, let me help out these people, even though their race was extreme, were like strange from each other. He's still descendants of mine. I need to help their line for the fate of the future, for my love of their family, for the love of my brother. Let me do the right thing. And he fostered them, and he kept their tokens safe, and kept them in good faith and goodwill. And he didn't need to, because he didn't help other men out like that. Like he was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this.
And Aragorn returned the favor by marrying his daughter.
His daughter.
Yes. But it's like 80 something times removed, so it doesn't matter. Just so we know. Even though they're distant cousins, but it's like so far removed, it's not incest.
So we're sort of assuming that they weren't raised together, right? Like they weren't raised as brother and sister, Aragorn and Arwen.
No, I don't think they were raised as brother and sister.
They were, like, there was a bit of an age gap there. It's not like they were children at the same time or anything.
Arwen was in Lothlorien for a bit, right?
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, she was in Lothlorien for a bit. And when she came back, her and Aragorn met when they were older.
When he was already a man.
When he was a man already. Yeah.
I didn't raise him or anything. Set him free.
Immortal.
Come back to me in 10 years.
And have a shower and clean your clothes.
Yeah.
Yes. So there's another fostering that we could talk about, and it's fostering within one's own family. So Eowyn and Éomer are kind of fostered by their uncle.
Oh my God, yes, of course.
And even though their family and their uncle, I know families that, oh, your mom, you're on your own, your own family now. Like, I'm your aunt, but you're not living with me, type of shit. But that didn't happen. Theoden actually like treated them like his kids, and they loved him on some different type of shit right there. I thought that was really dope. And the line eventually changes over to his sister-son line, and Éomer becomes the king. His son Theodred unfortunately died in attack on the Forge of Isen. But he did the right thing by his niece and nephew, and he kept Éowyn. Even though she had ambitions of fighting and things like that, he kept her in good health, and I thought his heart was in the right place. But you also have to let your kids blossom and do what they need to do. So we see her do that, and they meet again at his passing. When she disguises herself and rides with the Rohirrim to the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, and he's like, "What? I know your face!" Like, oh my God, who cried? Who cried? Did you cry?
Oh, any Theoden scene was pretty heavy in that movie. Oh my God.
So I think Theoden was an awesome foster parent, or great uncle to say the least. But he did right by them, and I thought he was a great guy.
Would Bilbo be in the good uncle category?
You know what? You just keep on surprising and amazing me, because I keep forgetting he fostered Frodo.
Yes, of course.
So Bilbo is actually not Frodo's uncle. He's his cousin, but the hobbits call their older cousins their like uncles and stuff like that, which it happens in real life as well. So yeah, absolutely. He definitely did right by Frodo, man. Yeah, I think he definitely did right by Frodo. I think he related to Frodo. He saw that. He I think they put a good job of putting, hey, I didn't only do this in the movie. I didn't only do this because, the tragedy of your mother and father. I saw you have real spirit, and you know what I'm saying? But he did give him the ring though. Is that kind of fucked up?
Did he pull the short end of the heirlooms?
He pulled a short end. He
Maybe.
pulled the short end of the heirlooms. So
Yeah,
guys, what is your favorite adoption situation or fostering situation within the Lord of the Rings?
Elrond and Elros easily. I think they're just as people, they are so pinnacle in the whole timeline. Like their birth, just because of their lineage and then what they do and how they interact every basically every elf, every man, and they're really good people. They change everything. I think they're the most important characters in the whole thing. Yeah.
That's awesome. Callie?
I guess I always liked the Aragorn being fostered by Elrond sort of thing. I don't know if it's because it was like a human being fostered by an elf, or I mean human-ish. What Aragorn? I don't know. But
He's human.
He's human. He's human.
Human.
Like like
He's
human
just a
plus one
better,
kind of thing or
just a
something. I
better
don't
human.
know. Human plus.
Superhuman.
But
Super.
yeah, I always thought that was nice, and how that all that there was just so much love there.
Yeah.
That I was always drawn to that.
Surprising enough, it's gonna blow your mind. But Thingol and Melian adoption of Turin or fostering of Turin. Not on Turin's side, because Turin's an asshole and I don't like him. But to see the change that comes over Thingol and the love that he has for Turin,
Yeah.
it really means something to me. I really like, yo, he did not fuck with men at all. He didn't like Baron at first, and then he learned from the situation with Baron at the end, like, he really loves my daughter. He gave up his hand. He like, yo, he really changed. And then he, in good faith, and Thingol is not the best guy. Thingol has his faults, but he really loved Turin. He really loved Turin to Rumbar. And I just think that is so awesome that he can go from one end of the spectrum completely to the other and mean it. He wasn't even just do it because talking about it. Well, I want to be a good foster because other people, he cared. He's like, yo, you can have anything. Like, I really, like, I want him to come back. Like, I love Turin. Like, that's my guy. Like, and I that means a lot just when I read it. To me, I'm like, man, I just wish Turin had just recognized that and accepted it and been like, yo, like, I'm not cursed. I'm loved. I could be in Doriath and I could be just, doing these good things or living this good life and, accepting it. And he just was so downtrodden on himself because of the curse that he knew about, that he wouldn't allow himself to be happy, saying, self-fulfilling prophecy, like I said. So that's my favorite instance, because of the love of the foster parents.
Mm-hmm.
One
So,
other thing that I was thinking about with Theoden was and this is not so much his fostering, but the way his relationship with Mary, really, when he really accepted Mary to be an esquire, and not just
oh
like
yeah, that was awesome.
Hobbit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was king's men, and he was
Yeah.
really going for it. And I loved that small addition into, yeah, that was just really nice.
Yeah, I find it like, so in Minas Tirith, Pippin very much is a hobbit running around in Minas Tirith, and they very much are letting him know, you're a freaking hobbit. Like, you're a halfling. Like, you're part of the thing, but you're little. Like, even the kids were like, yo, I think I could beat you. Like, it's not mean, but it's like he's very much that. In Rohan, Mary is accepted. Now, I know in the film they're like, oh, only the reach of his arm. But in the book, he's, yo, you're the Esquire. Like, yo, you're my guy. Like, yo, they didn't treated him very well, like very well and with respect. And I think that was so awesome. So I completely 100% agree with you. And I thought that, that difference of the book and the movie should be noted. He was treated very well in the movie. Very, very, I mean, the book, very, very well in the book. And he was given respect, and he took his role as Esquire seriously. that was awesome. So to wrap these things up, there are all different types of adoptions, all different types of fosterings, all different types of feelings. There isn't one blanket feeling. We all feel differently about how we were adopted, how we were, how we feel about our birth families, or our situations. Some situations were easier, some situations were tougher. You know what I'm saying? Like I bow to your guys' strength, like I said, for the situations that you guys are arisen from, and you are both like amazing people. So I want you to remember that, like, you know what I'm saying, like the circumstances that you come from, they build you in a certain sense, but they don't shape you to all ends. So you guys may have been left or whatever, but look where you are, and you inspire me. And you know if you may have not been in a situation to do that and have an effect on people, people really gravitate you towards you, Kali, because you're so organized, and I learned so much from you. And when I thank you on my podcast all the time, I don't do that shit because you're here and I'm trying to get points. I really mean that shit. I admire you so much because you have so many talents and skills that I don't have. You know what I'm saying? And you're like things that I can't do, you do so well. And you are like the maker of this community, and hold it all together. You're like the mother. So whatever you got instilled in you from the people that adopted you, look how dope that is. And like you are here for a reason, and you are like a light to so many people. Haley, I don't know you as well, but you make me smile every day. Like there's a warmth that comes with you. Like I'm so happy to engage with you and so happy to see your videos. And I mean that. I'm not making that shit up. Like when your shits pop up, there are people, and I'm just being honest with you, whose videos kind of annoy me. There are people like that tag you and stuff, and you're like, oh, okay. All right, stop tagging me. That's not the case. And that's just, it is what it is. I'm sure I do that to people, and I'm like, tag, and they're like, all right, calm down. But that's just the nature of the beast. You have a air about you that is so refreshing and wholesome, and your vibe is so dope. And there's an honesty about you. Like when you're not up for something, you're like, hey guys, I'm not feeling it or whatever. Like maybe we could do. It's just an honesty there with you, and it's awesome to see, because everybody's not who they say they are, or whatever. And you just, from what I see, you're free. You do what you want. From our conversation now, you let your emotions flow, which is a good thing, and you speak truth, no matter what it is. So I have an okay platform, and you're like, yo, I don't feel that way about the doors. This is how I feel. I don't. Don't ever change that, because now I'm like, oh, I never thought about it that way. Well, a lot of people will be like, yeah, Willie said that. So nah, I feel this way, and we can understand each other's opinion and stuff like that, but don't ever change. And you didn't hesitate at all. Hey, hold up. This is how I felt about it. This is how I read that situation. And that's so dope and refreshing. And don't ever change, and don't ever stop smiling. You guys are awesome. And our situations define us in a certain light, but they don't define who we are all together from our adoptions. But the good parts of us that we got from our peoples, our foster or adopted parents, that shit means something. And champion those things. But the negative parts that don't mean nothing, don't let those things define you, because they don't. Because look what you arisen from. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I'm going to end this thing at. And if any of you guys have anything to say about it, please do so. Leave us with some words of wisdom.
You have imparted a lot of wisdom on us today, New Meta. Like you have spoken a lot of truth and given a lot of really, really great advice for us personally, and hopefully for our listeners, in general, anyone who might be struggling with similar situations or anything like that. Like I hope that you were able to take something away from New Meta's advice today about family and love and cherishing and keeping in touch and all of that stuff. New Meta, just to round that off, I personally am always so incredibly proud of you. Everything you're doing, all the other projects you do, you guest on podcasts, and you just put so much Lord of the Rings knowledge out into the world in such a cool and accessible way for everyone. And it's just an honor, honestly, to be doing this podcast with you. This was an amazing episode with both of you. This was really cool. I don't talk a lot about my adoption experiences. So this was really amazing. Thank you both, really.
Thank you.
Thank you. Truly. And I mean that. I mean, just to talk to you both directly, you two are people I truly you inspire me. It's more than just like you make me smile when I see you pop up. I see you guys on lives, the way that you interact, the way you build community. Genuinely, there's so much that you guys do that I don't even know if you realize that for people. And it's more than just through Tolkien. It's you are good, genuine, kind people who do nothing but better everybody around them, which is so hard to do because so many people I feel like don't take the time to stop and listen to even friends, much less people that we make acquaintances with. And I've been really when they make a huge difference, I always want them to know, and I want you guys to truly know what a difference you guys have made in my life trajectory. I see qualities that I just want to be just like you guys. And I mean that. I want to be with your strength. Kali, you're so kind, and you guys are truly everything that I want to be. And I really mean that, because it's incredible to hear your stories, and I really thank you for sharing that. I will keep a lot of that in the bank, because that was just wisdom that is just so amazing to get. So thank you. And this means so much. And I'm to the podcast, this is everybody needs to be so engrossed in this, because it's so much more than just Lord of the Rings. Like I said, it's a group of people who are bringing so much joy and love and community. And I think that is so scarce these days. So I really hope you guys hold on to that and keep it going, because I'll be here supporting and loving it. So thank you.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you so much, and thank you for being a guest on the podcast.
Just before we go, so that we can support you some more, Haley, can you tell our listeners where to find you out on the internets?
Oh, oh yes, always. And I love all making new friends. So please, everybody, I love all new friends. So I am on Instagram and on TikTok and now on Threads, which we're enjoying as very much. It's a lawless land out there. So hop on. But it's Haley_LOTR, and that is Haley HALEY. Nothing special.
But everything special at the same time.
Everything. Guys, I think we had so much words of wisdom. Kelly, did you have a thing for us, or what are we doing?
I think I'm feeling pretty good about where we are.
I think
we've left on a very sweet note, and this is just perfect.
Usually Callie has self-care tips, but this was a whole giant self-care tip episode. And I hope that we helped anybody out. And you guys, if you ever want to talk about if anybody's out there is adopted and ever want to talk to any one of us, you know what I'm saying? Hopefully, if it's okay with you guys, just that's cool with me.
Yeah, please reach out.
Yeah, and we can also, you know what I'm saying, bring it into the Lord of the Rings vibe as well, and make anything relatable. We try to do that with every topic we do. So we are going to get out of here. This is probably our longest episode to date.
It definitely is, but we had a lot. It was a very special episode for us. And
shout out to Haley with the Lord of the Rings knowledge. I dead forgot about some of those fostering situations. And she's just like, but what about this new better? Boom. What about this one? Boom. Lord Master? Boom. And I was like, yo, that's what I like to see. Shout out to you, man. So guys, we are going to get out of here. Thank you so much for your time. This episode will be up very soon. So keep in stay tuned to Voices of Arda, and make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And we will see you guys. We are on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. So we will be getting out of here. See you next episode of Voices of Arda. Peace.